Hello and welcome to Feedstuffs 365 and National Hog Farmer. I'm Ann Hess. The new Consumer Connect research conducted by National Pork Board and verified with the help of the Meat Demand Monitor and Kansas State University will set off the biggest consumer outreach campaign in more than 25 years, reaching consumers in every segment. What's more, it will impact every link in the value chain, helping National Pork Board grow domestic demand and drive volume across the entire pork portfolio. Joining us to break down this research into greater detail are Kiersten Hafer, Vice President of Data and Insights for the National Pork Board, and John O'Donnell, Strategic Consumer Advisor and National Pork Board Consultant. Welcome to you both, and thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Ann. Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Before we jump into today's discussion, I'd like to remind the audience tuning in, you can post your questions at any time in the chat, or if you're tuning in via social media, you can post those there in the comments. So, Kiersten, let's kick off today's conversation with you. Remind our audience what this segmentation research is and how it connects to the upcoming brand campaign launching in 2025.
Yeah, thank you, Ann. So we spend a lot of time observing, listening, analyzing, and ultimately determining where to play and how to win with pork and consumers. So our segmentation is really a deep understanding of the consumer, who they are, how they feel about food, how they feel about meat, pork, and most importantly, why they feel that way. So we know that they're making decisions about food and they prioritize taste, nutrition, and convenience. And that really dictates what they buy and what they consume. So we have this level of understanding that starts with the consumer and where they are. And now we can really determine and dictate how and where pork enters that conversation and consideration, where they're making decisions in their daily life about what they're eating and what they're bringing into their home. So as it relates to the upcoming consumer campaign, we used all of that data, all of those insights, all of that consumer understanding to really build the campaign from that. So we're able to connect with the consumer on their terms, in their language, on things that we know are really important to them. So ultimately that enables us to be relevant and enter into the conversation with them and engage with them in a very natural way. So the combination of the segmentation and the consumer campaign really helps us understand the consumer and meet them where they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Being relevant with that audience is definitely needed. John, anything you'd like to add here?
Yes, this project in terms of segmentation delivered like unparalleled insights on how we can engage with the consumers. Most importantly, we have figured out a way for everyone in the industry, all the stakeholders, on where to reach these consumer segments the best way, either online or on the ground, in order to deliver incremental pork sales. So this is a very comprehensive project that really gives everybody the ability to have touch points with key consumer segments that will grow their business.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of touch points, why is the industry connected to emotions and motivations in their research and in developing a brand? John, help us understand the pork consumer and their feelings towards pork.
Sure. The over decades, when you look at any brands or any industry, in order to drive growth, their campaigns that deliver the most value, the deepest engagement, the increased sales, tie into emotions rather than just solely functional benefits. And we uncovered that in the pork industry of emotions across each of our segments, but it's defined differently in each group. So I'll take an example of the word pride, being proud and pride. In one of our groups, the culinary adventurers, pride is showing your global cuisine expertise to your family and your friends. While in another group, our mindful choice makers, that is taking care of yourself, nutrition, and making sure you have a long, healthy life. And then we have another group where pride is they're time constrained, and getting just the dinner on the table for their kids and their family is a feat in itself based on what's going on in their life. So pride means something differently, and we are able to really tailor what that means to each of the segments in order to drive that engagement and make pork more relevant for them in those groups.
As you're going through that, I'm just picturing different family and friends I can see fitting into some of those segments there. Kiersten, how's the value chain involved in this work?
Yeah, so when we think about the value chain, I think it's important to define who's in that group of stakeholders. So when we say value chain, we mean state organizations, we mean packer processors, retailers, food service operators, allied industry partners that ultimately work side by side and support our industry. And we have included them from day one in a lot of these conversations, whether it was the segmentation or the consumer campaign. We've brought that value chain along with us on the journey. So this isn't a case where we're just going to launch something into the marketplace as the National Pork Board and say, here it is. They've been at the table giving us feedback, making decisions alongside of us, helping us design it, and really starting to think about how are they going to activate against it. So segmentation worked that way. The campaign and the return to consumer marketing followed that very same process, where we've included those folks early in the conversations to help make sure that their needs were addressed and that we were thinking big enough ultimately.
Sounds like quite a few groups had a seat at the table. Can this work be replicated in their own business goals?
Absolutely. It can be replicated because we're solving for the entire industry, for the entire category and demand at the highest level. So it can absolutely be leveraged then against their specific needs, their specific business goals, objectives, and brand goals. And it's something that won't be a surprise because they've been involved in the conversations, or we've been leading them to it through a lot of the work that we've been doing over the last couple of years. So yeah, they're ready to embed it in their business.
So at a high level, what's been the value chain's reaction to the checkoff funded research and the umbrella strategy?
Yeah, it's been extremely positive. It's been a really positive response to segmentation, and a lot of folks are taking that and starting to activate against it, which is making the consumer campaign a very easy next on opportunity. So overall, us being active in bringing pork and the brand of pork to consumers has been really well received. We're not competing with how they're going to be going to market. We're actually enhancing that because we are going to play a part of a much bigger story and a role in warming consumers up to the option of pork. So they've been really excited about that. And the reality is everyone that we've been talking to across the value chain is in a different place on their own journey. So we are sitting at the table with them, helping them figure out how to navigate it, how to implement it, to support their own business across a lot of the big topics and the big areas that on an individual basis, those key stakeholders might struggle to consistently communicate on their own. Things like sustainability or demand or consumer preferences or nutrition. Those are things that are now part of the umbrella strategy that allow us to really create the rally cry for the industry. And that's something that they've been really supportive and welcoming.
Yeah, it's great to hear that there's not going to be this mixed messaging and they're not going to be competing with what you're saying or trying to find additional information, that you're going to be providing it to them.
Yeah.
I guess I'd like to ask you both, why is it important for a diverse range of value chain partners here to be involved in developing, a brand architecture along with a campaign? John, maybe I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think what Kiersten touched upon is that there's a lot of disparate pieces that each organization in the value chain are using in order to drive growth. And this umbrella strategy kind of is a cohesive service that is a common language where this disparate research, and this can be used together with the segmentation as the tool in order to have a common language, in order to speak, to develop those engagements that across the stakeholders would generate incremental growth and profitability and sales for both sides. So I do, yeah. So I do think the segmentation, we're seeing it being touched upon in many factors within the industry, and understanding how it could spur growth for the organizations, respective organizations.
Kiersten?
Yeah, I think you hit on it, Anne, and John just really hit on it very well. You know, it's creating one voice for pork. We're really helping pork break through and compete in a very crowded world where consumers have a lot of choices about what they eat, when they eat, where they source it from. And this allows us to now really have one consistent voice for pork so that, you know, we can be a part of the conversation. And it allows for brands and products then to deliver on that promise, that brand promise, with taste and flavor and the different ways to enjoy pork, not only as an eating experience, but in total how it fits and where it fits in their lifestyle. So it's a really big opportunity, again, to create the rally cry for pork as a brand.
I'd like to remind the audience, if you have any questions for Kiersten or John, you can post those there in the chat and we'll get them over to them. As we wrap up our discussion here today, I'd like to ask you both any key takeaways you'd like to leave our audience. John, I'll start with you.
Yes, what this really uncovered for the pork industry, the segmentation, is specific strategies for each of the segments, where we can win where we are, grow where we are, and then uncover emerging growth for the industry. And so that's more of a long-term play, but we have some short-term strategies based on the segmentation in order to defend where we have strength, the opportunity to grow the business, where if we come up with a more relevant campaign and a deeper engagement with those groups that mind when they're preparing their meals. So I do think this is probably one of the most comprehensive segmentations I've experienced in my 40 plus years. Hate to date myself. And everything is there in order to help the pork industry unleash the growth that it deserves.
Kiersten?
Yeah, I would just say this is the path forward. Like we understand exactly what we need to do and how to reach the consumer, and it's a really exciting time for the pork industry. We are very well equipped to get to that next generation younger consumer, make pork relevant again, and we've identified the path and the road to get there. So I just want to thank you for being a part of that journey and sharing in the progress and the exciting future of pork.
Kiersten Hafer, Vice President of Data and Insights for the National Pork Board, and John O'Donnell, Strategic Consumer Advisor and National Pork Board Consultant. Thank you both so much for joining us here today and sharing your insight. And, we look forward to hearing more about this campaign in the new year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For you and our audience, we thank you for tuning in today. For more coverage and conversations on pork industry related topics, be sure to check out the live and on-demand section of Feedstuffs 365. For Feedstuffs and National Hog Farmer, I'm Ann Hess.